Okay, now I have my arrow completed and I'm quite happy with the way it looks. It's probably a little bit too clean, but I'll go back later and I'll show you how we add some more damage and pitted metal. But first I want to open up the circle that is also part of the compass. So I'll go into my subtools and scroll down to the circle. The important thing here is I'm trying to maintain the shape. What I have is obviously a circle and I want that to smoothen out. However, I have it with a chiseled point in the middle. Now, one of the things that I tend to do in 3D before I come into ZBrush is I'll usually split an additional line on my edges. So these three edges would normally have an additional split very close to them, but I didn't do that in this piece. So what I have to do is come up with a solution that will keep this ring maintaining the basic form, but will also smooth itself out. So let's jump right in and see what we can do within ZBrush. So I'm going to go into the geometry setting and I'll turn off my smooth and I'll give it 2 divisions. Now I know that is going to give me some hard edging, but I'm sure that I could probably soften that up with smooth at some point. So let's see how it comes out when we hit the first one. Okay, so that maintained a good portion of the shape, and you can see we have this banding that is not necessarily desirable, but we could probably get rid of that with the polish tool. So I'm just going to continue and jump right in, and let's just clean it up from here. I'm going to go ahead and divide this one more time. Now there is one very cool thing we can do. Because we are working with a cylindrical object, we can use our X symmetry. However, we're not going to just work in the X, and we're also not going to work in just the Z. I'm going to go to transform. I'm going to go change that to a radial symmetry. So this R that is right here, when I press on it, you'll notice it says radial count, and it has a numerical value, in this case 8. So now when I mouse over my object, you'll notice I have these 8 pixel points that are following. However, they're not wanting to be in the X. So we'll go back over and change that to Z, and that's not it either. So Y is the magic letter. So what you can see now is we have these 8 points that I can now use as I'm sculpting across, which means I only have to work on 1/8 of the circle. This is going to be a huge time saver. I could even increase it if I wanted to. Now, because I am getting rid of these hard edges, I could physically turn that into the number I have here, which I believe is 20. So let's give that a try. We'll just take a look at it. And yes, so that is 20, which means it'll be very easy because all I have to do is just focus on a small little area as I'm polishing and cleaning up. So what I want to do now is come to the edge, and I'm going to go to my polish B, and this is the main area right here that I'm trying to reduce. So I'll just hit that a little bit. Great. Now I'll do the same thing here on the top surface. Once again on the inner surface. And then finally the interior. We didn't make it perfect, but we did reduce the strength that we had before. I'm going to just work on it a little bit more. Let me try switching to trim dynamic just for a moment, just to see if that does help us. Yeah, that trim dynamic is very strong. So we just have to be careful with it. We'll hit that with the trim dynamic. Yeah, that's working out better. And finally, the last ring. Now I'm going to just put a little bit of a smooth on here to soften it. And the final thing I want to do is just tighten up some of the edge work that we lost with all that smoothing. Once again, to do that, I'm going to switch back over to the Mech A brush. I want to just make sure that my auto back face masking is turned on. And I'll just gently hit that line once again to sharpen it. That's what we wanted. So as you can see, I could have gotten this result had I brought the model back into Maya, but it wasn't necessary. I'm going to disregard the bottom again since this is going to be flush with the book. That's not going to be necessary, but everything else looks great. So with that, I will come up here and turn on the triangle that we did before. Just have to get the correct one, just so that I can make sure that I'm matching the general cut marks and slices, the nicks that we have going in here. At this stage, I want to roughen up the surface a little bit. I'm going to go back to my clay tubes. I'm going to actually keep the radial symmetry on. I want to add my texture throughout quickly. And when you do this, it doesn't always have to be a build-up. You can also hold down the Alt button and cut in. Just be aware of the intensity setting. That's really the major issue that you have to deal with. So now we have our metal all roughened. I'm now ready to begin adding more metal texturing. So I'll turn off my radial symmetry before moving on to the next step.